going to proceed, and will then ask the interim monitoring officer to take us through the legal issues. Due to the government guidance on social distancing, we are meeting virtually on Zoom. The law as it stands means that these virtual arrangements cannot stand in place of a physical meeting at the Combined Authority Board. In order for decisions to be made via these virtual arrangements, they will be made by me as Mayor using my general power of competence. However, I am determined that in making those decisions, we remain as transparent and as accountable as possible, and I will take on board the views of the members of the Combined Authority Board before taking each decision. Officers will present their reports in the usual way, and I will invite members to debate each item and to indicate whether they support the recommendations before I take a decision. We have made arrangements for the press and public to follow our virtual meeting in real time via the Combined Authority's website, and also, I believe, on Facebook. Rebecca, it's not happening yet on Facebook. Okay, but hopefully, potentially on Facebook as well. I have also asked officers to advise on which items could be deferred to a future meeting of the CA board, in the expectation that sooner rather than later, the law will be changed to allow the CA board to hold its meeting on a virtual basis. My decision making today will be restricted to those matters which officers advise require a decision now, rather than anything which can wait. Decision summaries and minutes will be prepared and published in the usual way. Although a meeting of the business board via Zoom went ahead successfully on Monday, there is always a risk that we run into technical problems. If we do, we will continue the rest of the meeting via telephone conference between the CA board members and relevant officers. I'd now like to introduce the interim monitoring officer to take us briefly through the legal issues which arise from having to change how the Combined Authority makes its decisions. Dermot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you've indicated, we're unable to hold a physical meeting of the CA board due to the social distancing guidance, and the law as it stands does not allow the CA board to conduct virtual meetings. This leaves two options for making the decisions which cannot wait for the law on holding virtual local government meetings to be changed. First is for decisions to be made by the Combined Authorities officers using the powers delegated to them in the Constitution. The second is for decisions to be made by you as the Mayor using your general power of competence. I would advise you that while both options are valid, it would be preferable for decisions to be made by an elected member rather than an unelected officer in order to provide greater accountability for the decision making. The Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority Order of 2017 gave the Combined Authority a general power of competence under the Localism Act 2011. This is the same power of competence enjoyed by the constituent authorities. The 2017 order also provided that the Mayor may do anything that the Combined Authority may do under the General Powers of Authorities section of the Localism Act. The Combined Authority and the Mayor both have the same power of competence. The restrictions on the Mayor's use of the general power are that any decision involving the transfer of rights, property and liabilities to or from the Combined Authority and the constituent authorities, or any decision relating to preparation and publication of a non-statutory spatial strategy requires consent of all members of the Combined Authority appointed by the constituent councils or their substitute members. So that's the form of decision making the Mayor cannot take. Second restriction is any decision which would require 2/3 majority voting under the Constitution or the 2017 order can't be taken by the Mayor using his general power of competence. Thirdly, any decision taken by the Mayor under his general power will be subject to funding being available. And finally, the normal general administrative law principles as to reasonableness and so on. Quick technical point. So in the Localism Act in section 1, it does confirm that the generality of the general power is not limited by the existence of any other power of the authority which overlaps the general power. What this means is that the general power does overlap with the statutory powers of the Combined Authority. So I can therefore advise as the Combined Authority's interim monitoring officer that it's lawful for the Mayor using his general power of competence to take the decisions today which the CA board would have made had it been able to meet in the normal way, but that is subject to the restrictions I've set out. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Dermot. So just to reiterate, as this is a virtual meeting, I'll just set out some ground rules. Please keep your microphones muted unless you wish to speak. This will minimise background noise. Keep your video turned on throughout the meeting. This will enable everybody to follow who is speaking. And if you request to speak, please put your hand in the air. For those who are following the meeting via the Combined Authority website, welcome. You should be able to follow what is being said at the meeting and see the video of who's saying it. The agenda and reports are on the Combined Authority's website. The software allows you to choose a name when you join the meeting. If you do not want to be identifiable, please choose a pseudonym. The meeting is being recorded and it is our intention to publish the recording on the Combined Authority's website. With all new arrangements, especially those involving new systems, we may experience some technical problems, and I would ask for your patience if we do. The Business Board conducted a successful virtual meeting on Monday, but if we are to run into problems in the technology is not working, we'll have to switch to telephone conference. A decision statement and minutes will be published in the normal way following the meeting. The latest information we have is that there are proposed amendments to the coronavirus bill, which is currently going through the parliamentary process, which will allow rules to be made to allow virtual government, local government meetings. I would therefore hope that this will be the last time we have to use these decision-making arrangements. And I will reiterate, although decisions will be put into place using the Mayor's general power of confidence, I would not ever decide in a meeting like this to go against the views of the Combined Authority, and therefore I will only act on the majority decision of the Combined Authority. So we move on to the agenda, item 1.1, announcement, apologies and declarations of interest. Members, in order to facilitate the smooth running of this meeting, I will begin by calling the names of members of the Combined Authority Board in order to establish your presence. Board members with voting rights at public meetings are Austin Adams.
Present.
Councillor Allocations, Leader of East Cambridgeshire District Council.
Present.
Councillor Roger Hickford, Deputy Leader of Cambridgeshire County Council, substituting for Councillor Steve Count.
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor John Nish, Deputy Leader of Huntingdonshire District Council, substituting for Councillor Ryan Fuller.
I'm here, but I've got a slight technical issue. I'm working off a phone and iPad at the moment.
Okay, well, we're delighted to have you, Councillor Nish, and I hope that's something you can sort out. Councillor Lewis Herbert, the Leader of Cambridge City Council.
Present and impressed by the efforts of achieving this.
And Councillor John Holditch, Leader of Peterborough City Council and Statutory Deputy Mayor.
I'm trying to get him, he's come through a different link. I'm trying to get him on. I can't find him at the moment.
Okay, well, please continue to try and chase down Councillor Holditch. I know he's about because I've spoken to him this morning already.
Yeah,
so,
I can't see him on there.
He's not on. He's not on at the moment.
No.
No. Councillor Bridget Smith, Leader of South Cambridgeshire District Council.
Hello, good morning. I'm here.
Councillor Ray Bisbee, Acting Police and Crime Commissioner.
Yes, good morning. I'm here, but I'm working from the phone, and I do have to leave for a meeting at 12.
Okay. Councillor Chris Bowden, Leader of Fendon District Council.
Present by phone.
And Councillor David Over, Vice Chair of the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Fire Authority.
Present.
Good to see you all. So as you will have heard, we've had apologies received from Councillor Count, substituted from Councillor Hickford, and Councillor Fuller, substituted by Councillor Nish, and from Jess Borden, our Clinical Commissioning Group representative. Does any board member wish to declare an interest in today's meeting? I've seen your hands going up. So members can also declare an interest at any point in the meeting. And given the magnitude of the COVID-19 crisis, I've asked officers to bring a report to this virtual meeting to outline the Combined Authority's response. This report was not published with the rest of the agenda, and the decisions were not on the Combined Authority's forward plan. In those circumstances,
Thank you. Right.
Thank you. We are joined by Councillor Holditch. Councillor Holditch, welcome. And would you please be able to put your computer onto mute, please?
I will indeed.
In those circumstances, and because the report includes key decisions, I require agreement of the Chair and of the Overgroup Scrutiny Committee that the decisions are urgent and cannot reasonably be deferred. The Chair of the Overgroup Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Dupre, has given her agreement on that basis. and the required statutory notice has been published on the Combined Authorities website together with the report. I will therefore be dealing with the report as an urgent item at this virtual meeting on the basis that the Combined Authority is duty bound not only to consider these issues on an urgent basis, but to share with the press and public how we are responding to this unique situation. I will therefore be dealing with this item at the beginning of the agenda. That will be after item 1. I've agreed to accept questions from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee in the usual way, and I will invite the Chair of the Committee, Councillor Lord de Prey, to join the meeting to put those questions when we reach the relevant items on the agenda. Councillor de Prey, you had a number of general questions about the Combined Authority response to the current situations. We will call you forward as and when they are relevant. I believe you are online, Councillor de Prey.
Indeed, yes.
Okay, great. That's wonderful. Thank you. So we go to the minutes, item 1.2. We will defer the consideration of the minutes of the January meeting until the next board meeting convenes with decision-making powers. Item 1.3, there are no petitions or public questions, so we'll move to item 1.5. The forward plan is published on the web and is updated regularly. If there are any decisions on the forward plan which are allocated to the executive committees, but which members think should be dealt with by the Combined Authority Board, instead, please say now so the board can take a view. Are there any committee decisions which members would want to be reserved to the board? I can see no hands going up. So items deferred from today's meeting will be carried forward. I will now ask each voting member of the board to indicate whether they would be content to approve the forward plan published on the 13th of March 2020, so that I can take their views into account in making the decision using my general power. Austin Adams. Okay. Councillor Anna Bailey. You're muted, Councillor Bailey.
I'm pressing the key, but it doesn't seem to be working. Yes, very happy.
Okay. Councillor Chris Bowden.
Content.
Councillor Roger Hickford.
Agreed.
Councillor Ryan, it says Ryan Nish here, I don't think that's you. Councillor John Nish.
I'm content. I think you can see me now as well, can you?
I can, yes. Councillor Lewis Herbert.
I am, but I just want to review and maybe email officers. Could I also suggest something, James? If you're asking for votes in favour, why a show of hands? Would that be quicker for other votes? It's your decision.
I just want to make sure that everybody has, rather than me get it wrong, I'd rather do it this way, even if it takes a little bit longer. While we get used to the technology, I'd rather ask you individually. I hope you understand that I don't want to make a mistake, Councillor Herbert. Councillor Holditch has disappeared.
Content.
Okay.
Content.
And Councillor Smith.
Yes, thank you. I just like, as Lewis said, I'd just like us to keep things under review, please.
Yes, of course. Okay, so that's unanimous, and so the decision on this matter is to approve the forward plan. We move to item 1.6. This is designation of the monitoring officer. Please would Robert Parkin withdraw from the virtual meeting for this item? Thank you. We are being invited to designate Robert Parkin as the monitoring officer with effect from tomorrow. Members of the board have seen Robert Parkin's CV, which was included as an exempt appendix to the report. If any members have any questions or comments on this appointment they want to put to Kim Sawyer, Chief Executive, please indicate this now by raising your hand. I see no hands moving forward. So can I take it that that we members would indicate whether they would support the recommendation to appoint Robert Parkin as monitoring officer set out in the report, so I can take their views into account, making the decision using my general power? I will ask each board member in turn. Austin Adams.
You have my support.
Councillor Bailey.
Yes, support.
Councillor Bowden.
Agreed.
Councillor Hickford.
Agreed.
Councillor Nish.
You have my support. Agreed.
Councillor Herbert.
Agreed.
Councillor Holditch.
Agreed.
And Councillor Smith.
Agreed, and my thanks to the interim monitoring officer for all his efforts.
Yes, I think we would all echo that. Dermot has been an exceptional interim officer, and we would like to thank him very much. So would officers, my decision on this matter is accept the recommendations in the report, and would officers please invite Robert to rejoin the meeting. Okay, so we move on to item 1.7, which is designation of scrutiny officer. We're being invited to designate Robert Fox as interim scrutiny officer until the return of the permanent post holder. Dermot Pearson, interim monitoring officer, is available to answer any questions. Do any members have questions or comments? No questions or comments. So would voting members indicate whether they support the recommendation to appoint Robert Fox as interim scrutiny officer as set out in the report, so that I can take their views into account in making the decision using my general power? Austin Adams?
Support.
Councillor Bailey?
Agreed.
Councillor Bowden?
Agreed.
Councillor Hickford?
Support.
Councillor Nish?
Agreed.
Councillor Herbert?
Agreed.
Councillor Holditch?
Agreed.
And Councillor Smith.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. So I would therefore like to move, as I said in the opening statement, I would like to move the item on COVID-19 up the agenda, and I believe Mr. John Hill is going to introduce the paper. John.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me? My internet connection isn't the best.
It's fine. We can hear you well.
Great, thank you. So the Combined Authorities response to COVID-19, members will have noted the government's economic response in general, and numerous measures have been implemented by government to provide economic response to COVID-19. They include the new COVID job retention scheme, which pays 80% of salaries up to £2,500 for any job, anyone not working but not retained in a job as a result of COVID-19. The deferred tax and VAT payments for all UK registered VAT payers. The grants for retail, hospitality, leisure leisure businesses, consisting of 25k grant for businesses operating from smaller premises of a rateable value of 15 to 51k. The grant for small businesses that pay little or no business rates, consisting of 10k. Business rate relief, allowing 100% of business rates discount for retail, leisure and hospitality venues and companies. And then of course the coronavirus business interruption loan scheme, CBILS, which offers between £1,000 and £5 million for SMEs, basically up to £45 million turnover as the EU definition sets out. The Combined Authorities' particular response has been formulated in three areas: immediate, short-term and medium-term. The immediate response has been to adopt a position of remaining open for business, with planned meetings such as this continuing to take place but virtually, and relying on decisions made by the Mayor's general powers of competence. The Combined Authority is working with its partners on the bus operators to try and ensure adequate transport for key workers. And the Director of Delivery and Strategy has communicated with ministers about funding for bus services, and has also worked with providers to provide continuity of funding for home and school transport. That concludes the immediate work. In the short term, that being 2 to 20 weeks, the Business Board will coordinate business communications, monitoring all government business-related updates and those from the COVID-19 Strategic Coordination Group, cascading those messages down into businesses through the combined authorities channels and its network of business organisations. We'll also be coordinating business information, advice and guidance and signposting on the package of HMG measures that I went through previously. The Business Board is recommending that we offer interest accruing repayment holidays to companies in receipt of loans from the Local Growth Fund, covering repayments between 24th of March and the 31st of August. The Business Board is also recommending that we make adjustments to the terms and conditions of the small capital grant scheme that is already offered and has a budget of up to £3 million in order to make that scheme available for companies subject to financial hardship and challenge as a result of the economic impacts of COVID. The Combined Authority also proposes to consider proposals for loan repayment holidays for all other investment funds and loans, such as the housing schemes. A review will be undertaken to consider the risks of delivery of the Combined Authority's current projects and how they may be impacted by COVID in terms of their completion dates and the eligibility of funding relative to those completion dates. In the medium term, that being 3 months to 21 months, all priorities and programs will be reviewed to focus on those which will increase the ability of the Combined Authority to support economic recovery. This includes a Business Board recommendation, which is in your pack as Appendix B, to develop ideas around an 18-month medium-term business recovery plan comprising 4 elements: recover, orient, adapt, and regrow. The recover phase would target the strengthening of the financial security and sustainability of local businesses through the recovery through something like a recovery investment scheme for enterprise. Then further support would be offered to help recovering firms through the orient and adapt phase to help them cope with the medium and long-term shifts in market and customer behaviours resulting from COVID-19. This could potentially help firms orient and adapt to these permanent shifts in their business whilst identifying regrowth opportunities, raising business leader ambitions, identifying barriers, developing strategies, and supporting implementation of change programs that are around both coping with the negative longer-term impacts and also capitalising on the opportunities that may occur through the shifts in markets and customer behaviours. This could also be complemented by a 50% capital regrowth grant to invest with, to co-invest with local firms in new technology and equipment to help them adapt and capture new opportunities for growth between £25,000 and £250,000 based on a benchmark scheme performance of £10,000 per regrown or safeguarded job. That concludes my summary.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hill. Before we move on to open the floor to questions, I'd like to introduce Councillor Dupre, who had some questions from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Councillor Dupre, would you like to come to the floor and ask your questions?
Good morning. The question that the Overview and Scrutiny asked was, will the Mayor make a statement at this meeting on the COVID-19 pandemic and the Combined Authority, including the Combined Authority's own preparations for the pandemic, Combined Authority support for any agencies in the front line of the crisis, any updates on support being provided to business, transport plans to enable key workers to get to work and to childcare provision, and what plans the Combined Authority has to divert staff and resources away from the non-urgent and into present resilience.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Dupre. As you will note, obviously, since Combined Authority, since Scrutiny put those those questions, we have brought this paper forward, which I hope will answer the questions you have before you, and obviously the committee now, the board will consider the urgent report and our preparations. And I hope that from that, scrutiny are, the questions at scrutiny are answered. So I would now like to open to members. Councillor Smith.
Thank you very much. So I welcome this paper coming forward now. I think that's very appropriate. So just picking up on for some clarity, please. Giving interest repayment holidays, we obviously have to balance making sure that that offer is to the people who are going to need it against the need for speed. So are you planning a sort of carte blanche holiday for everybody in receipt of grants from us, including the £100 million housing awards, or are you somehow filtering to make sure that those people who are going to continue to be in a position to repay are allowed to do so? I am aware that this will potentially impact on our own cash flows, and since there's actually going to be significant additional demand on us to be able to give money and loans, I think it is really important that whilst trying to do the right thing for our businesses, and it's absolutely vital we stop anybody going out of business, we also make sure that we have a continuing flow of money going through. So that's my first question. Second question is, are we aware of any additional money coming to combined authorities and to LEPs from government in order to help us address this? And can I just have some clarity? Is John anticipating actually reprofiling all our schemes now in order to address the current crisis? And what effect will that have on the business board's existing plans?
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Mr. Hill.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I'll take obviously those in order. On the need for testing, yes, the proposals at the moment are early stage and draft, and we would very much work with our finance officer, John Alsop, in developing some tests around need and validating that need. I can actually tell you though that of the LGF projects currently live, as loans, there is in fact only one that would currently be affected, which is a company called TerraView on some lab space in Greater Cambridge, and one that would become eligible right towards the end of this period. So in fact, there isn't a large number of companies currently affected by it, and yes, we would conduct tests. In terms of, I'll just nip to the last question because it's related. In terms of reprofiling future loans and schemes on the LGF, we do have a proposal in the pack as one of the appendices that suggests that we change the criteria around our small grants, and we have considered a proposal for upfront payments on new and existing LGF programs, but currently we are not recommending that for approval because it would be too difficult to assess.
We seem to have lost you.
You're breaking up. I'm not losing you.
John.
Mayor, could I come in there, please? Just to answer some of these points. I think in relation to the housing loans, Councillor Smith, you'll appreciate this is an emerging situation. So we are still going through the process of assessing internally all of the current financial obligations we have, and before any decisions are made on whether we will give payment holidays on any of our housing loans or indeed anything else that we're doing, we will bring a report back to this board so that you will have the opportunity to discuss and debate that. We would anticipate the next meeting to happen as soon as the legislation is in force, and we can then give appropriate notice to hold a public meeting so that you can all take part. It will be a virtual meeting, but it will take part shortly. And then by that time, we should have had the opportunity to review all of our budgets and bring that forward. In relation to the local authorities, we are part of, as well as being part of the strategic coordination group that's being run regionally, with Julian Beasley, as you know, as the chair of that at the moment. We're part of that group. We are forming an economic subgroup as part of that wider regional group to look at how we contribute towards the recovery. We are speaking also through a mayoral group, a mayoral combined authorities group, to government, and we have made the point that about local authorities and the support that they may need locally. So we are actively engaging with government on your behalf as well through that means. So I think those answers the point. If you've got any other questions, happy to take them.
Yes, Councillor Smith.
If I could just come back. So, so while we're normally absolute sticklers for everything, going through our sort of sometimes rather ponderous process, I'm very aware that we have businesses making decisions every day of the week at the moment about whether to lay people off or whether to continue their operations or whether to actually just shut up shop. So I think we need to think really carefully about our own processes being able to be really, really slick and speedy. And if we're going to stick with, the normal situation of everything coming with papers and to the board and so on, half a dozen businesses might not be functioning anymore. So I'd really appreciate us, looking at how we can act really swiftly when there is an absolutely critical situation with a business, because I know these decisions are happening on a daily basis at the moment.
Okay, I've got Mr. Hill, who seems to be back in the internet world. So I'll bring him in, and then Ms. Sawyer, if you need to add anything beyond that, I'll bring you in. Mr. Hill, you are muted still.
Sorry for that. Yes, Councillor Smith, you're quite right, which is why we've chosen the small grant system, which operates entirely from the officer delegation. And the fastest we've got a grant out so far is 2 weeks. The average is 4 weeks.
Okay, well, I would argue it needs to be faster than that. I would argue now.
Could I please add Mayor, that I think we were, when of course this first happened, we were being contacted by businesses. We tried to take some more immediate action. Given the announcements made by the government to support businesses and that grant funding being run through local authorities, we are not receiving at the moment, although John may correct me, we're not receiving for the combined authority loans anybody coming to us saying that's putting them in particular financial difficulties or forcing them into any sort of insolvency. So we feel that we have a couple of weeks to review the position from the combined authority. What John is doing separately is looking at how we can assist through our businesses through the business board.
Yes, Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I'm sorry to labour a point. I'm just worried that these people are not getting to you. So I think we need to have a big kind of publicity drive here to say that the combined authority is open for business and is able to give these small loans and give them quickly, because I think people just don't, particularly villages like where I live, people's awareness of the combined authority, particularly when they are little businesses, is very, very poor indeed. And we need to, I think we probably need some comms out to certainly district councillors and to parish councillors, so they can start putting stuff on their websites and promoting the considerable sums of money that we have at our disposal.
Mr. Hill.
Yeah, absolutely. Pending the agreement and ratification today, we are planning to do promotional campaigns from next week. But I would ask members to note that these are capital grants, and they can be applied for new equipment instead of taking on new debt that produces more challenge for the companies. These aren't the revenue grants, they're the ones that in fact the local authorities will be providing at £10,000 and £25,000.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Hickford.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I know officers have been working incredibly hard behind the scenes on this one. It's come very quickly to the board. And I'd just like clarity from John Hill if possible. The first thing is that the recommendation is to approve, and I believe it should be more noted as it's still progress, still work in progress, and will be evolving. Could I just ask John if that's the case?
Mr. Hill?
I do apologise. I didn't actually catch that because my internet was down. Could you just quickly summarise the question?
Yes, John, I was saying that you've been working incredibly hard with other officers behind the scenes here, and the recommendation is to approve the proposed combined authority response to COVID-19, and it was suggested that it should be noted because actually it's still work in progress and is evolving all the time.
Mr. Hill? Looks like he's frozen. Ms. Sawyer, would you be able to answer?
The answer to that is yes, quite simply.
Okay. Any further comments?
May I ask a question, please, Mayor?
Hold on, Councillor Bowden. Councillor Hickford, I apologise. Councillor Hickford has a follow-up. So Councillor Hickford first, and I'll be...
Yeah, there was just another couple of things that I know officers have been working behind the scenes. So it's the relationship with the subgroup to the SCG. And it's suggested that there should be different wording in there. And this is where I know John's been working on this, which is why it's unfortunate he can't come in at the moment, but it was suggested the wording should be to support the establishment of the economic recovery subgroup to be chaired by the combined authority and the subgroup's role in supporting the work of the COVID-19 strategic coordinating group. That was just a change that was suggested. And also, with regards to the terms of reference, that it's a really good start at the moment, but they need to be seen and signed off by the subgroup itself and then the SCG. So I hope John can come in on that now. I hope he can hear me.
Yeah, I do apologise, Councillor Hickford. Yes, I did catch the last part of what you were saying, and I promise I was going to make exactly those points had my internet connection stayed up. So yes, absolutely. The SCG has got to develop these terms of reference further, and we'll need to approve them.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bowden.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm very happy to note and support the immediate response and the short-term response which has been laid out in this report. I was a bit surprised with the medium-term response to see quite a degree of specificity here in the detail, especially within Appendix B. And the reason I'm surprised is that at the moment we really have very little idea of what the effect of the COVID-19 crisis is going to be. I note in Appendix B it states that the economy is likely to contract by about 4%. We have absolutely no idea if that figure is going to be correct or not. It could be a lot worse than that. It could be better. One thing which is extremely likely is there's going to be quite a large variability of the effect of COVID-19 on different sectors of the economy. So what I'm asking is that we do note that the medium-term response really does need to be very flexible. And what's been written in Appendix B may need to be changed very substantially indeed, based on what we know, what emerges in the next few weeks. And by the time of our next meeting, I would hope that we have a much better idea of what is happening and what the likely timescales are going to be. And Appendix B may need to be looked at in a very different manner, and we might need to have a quite different medium-term response from what is written here.
Yes, Mr. Hill.
Absolutely, Councillor Bowden. It is a starter for 10. It may well vary greatly in the next month, and it is almost certainly unlikely to look like that when we eventually launch in something like July and August. And indeed may well change and will be flexible and allow adaptation between August and the new year as well, as more data and more market conditions become known. So yes, it will be ultimately flexible.
Okay. Councillor Nish.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just think I'd like to reiterate, I do really welcome this paper. I think it's as he's just put it, a good start of 10. And I think it's really difficult to get anything firmed up at the moment with such a changing environment. But I think it is a good start, and I just think it's that review that needs to be constantly undertaken to ensure that it is appropriate for that particular time.
Thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Smith's back again.
Sorry about that. Are we going to discuss the terms of reference, please, that are in Appendix A?
We can do.
Thank you.
What would you like to discuss?
Thank you. So in relation to the membership, which is at 3, I'm sorry, I don't have page numbers here. Currently, it's solely officers on it. I really would like to suggest that those of us who have got political involvement in economic development and in business support are able to nominate members, suitably skilled members to be on that panel. So I have Councillor Peter MacDonald, who is my lead member for business support, and he will be, we're putting together a team of 4 people at the moment. It may well be larger than that now. So really an appeal for those of us with suitably skilled and involved members for them to be part of that membership too, please.
I think that's a very valid point. I have got considerable concerns that the response so far and the county council, Peterborough City Council, local government response in Cambridgeshire has been led by officers, and there is no political involvement at all. And I think that's a very dangerous situation, because ultimately the comeback will be entirely to elected members and not to those who are unelected. So I think it's tremendously important that that there is local government involvement from an elected point of view in any response in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. So I welcome that. Thank you very much indeed. Because at the end of the day, nobody knows our districts better than we do. We are the people who are well connected and are talking to our businesses either directly or through our local members as well. So that's why I think it's absolutely vital for us to keep that local level of intelligence in the conversations. And even though I have every respect for our officers and their ability to do it, I think that will add huge value to it.
Yes, Councillor Smith, I'm sure that you're aware that there is a briefing for elected members on Friday, and I think it would be important that you make those points, and I will make those points as well, that it is imperative that there is elected representative on that board. Councillor Herbert.
Briefly, yeah, I'd really welcome if there is to be a report from Kim in terms of the assessment of what is urgent. Clearly some issues like whether or not a transport project or housing project is proceeding isn't going to change. We ain't going to make any difference. But I do hope that for the next discussion we can just, if you like, have a risk assessment analysis, just to have a look at, first of all, issues where we can unblock things or we can avoid hurting people, but also just an initial take. Clearly on a lot of it we're going to get to the other end before we really know the impact. And while speaking, yeah, I've set up a network basically with business. The first discussion is this evening, and I just think, yeah, some informal engagement by leaders, along with the fact that all leaders and the county council and yourself are going to have a network call later this week. So I just value at this stage it's in part just going to be informal. So I hope that I will gain something, albeit that there is limits to what we can achieve. We are so pressed, so much going on, but I do think our officers, James, are playing their part and they are engaging with businesses. You just look at the list that John Hill put in the summary report. There is something like 15 interventions where our officers are leading to assist businesses and employees in the city, in addition to everything else.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point. It's clear that we are in a state of significant flux, and we are reacting to a situation that none of us have ever experienced before. And we have to, I believe that the Chancellor of the Exchequer is right. He has said we will do whatever it takes to support business and support the economy and support the UK in this time of crisis, and we must play our part in that. And I very much welcome the effort, the work that's been put in by officers across the entire Cambridgeshire and Peterborough region, not just within the Combined Authority, but within all the authorities, to try and do our part to help the national response to COVID-19. And we will try and be as fleet of foot. I take on point Councillor Smith's points earlier about how can we do things more quickly. I think anybody who knows me knows that I'm somebody who would agree with that kind of statement. And I think we have to be, as I said, as fleet of foot as possible and make the right decisions. But we also have to be mindful in our decision making that we are in a strong position at the other end of COVID-19, so that the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough economy can accelerate quickly when normal restrictions or when the current restrictions are taken away and normal life begins again. As you would expect, I will continue to lobby into government and talk to government. I've had discussions this week with Secretary of State for Transport and Secretary of State for Communities and Local Government, and I will later in the week be talking to Baroness Veer, who is in charge of buses from a government perspective, try and make sure that the Combined Authority, and as we mentioned, is able to act appropriately to support not just our business community, of course, but the people of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough as this situation continues. Do I have any other comments? Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to sort of put on record your comment about you know, very much being an officer-led response and not really seeing the involvement of elected members. I mean, certainly I can speak from the County Council and the District Council perspective where, you know, senior elected members have been very much involved, but obviously a huge number of operational decisions are being taken every single day and need to be taken swiftly. So recognise that, and I'm sure that things will calm down and we'll adjust and we'll be able to take a slightly more medium-term view over time and a more sort of strategic look, and things will need to change. So, but just wanted to put on record that certainly at the two authorities I'm involved in, certainly, you know, elected members have been involved and certainly kept up to date and informed, and to thank officers for that, because they are just moving mountains at the moment at incredibly rapid speed, and I've been very, very impressed with the responses that have taken place.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? So we have, excuse me, I'm just going between, I'm getting used to trying to work through computers everywhere as well, which I'm not very good at. So I will now be asking voting members of the board to indicate whether they support the recommendations set out in the report, so that I can take their views into account in making the decision using my general power. I will ask each member in turn, as before. Austin Adams.
Yeah, I support, and with great thanks to the officers for the work that they've done in such a short period of time.
Councillor Bailey.
Support.
Councillor Bowden.
Agreed.
Councillor Hickford.
Yes, Mayor. Just instead of approve, could we have notes so that it's more fluid and we can easily get back to it and change as necessary? With that, obviously, support.
Yeah, the question is whether you support the recommendation. So it's not an in favour or a noting, it's just support of.
No. The recommendation is to approve. What I'm saying is that could we change the recommendation, which we talked about earlier, to note, which would allow it to be a lot more fluid for us going forward.
Okay, I will have to bring in Mr. Pearson. Dermot, can you advise us, please, on what Councillor Hickford has asked?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So I think you've covered this in the debate with members. So the current recommendations in the report, if you just give me one moment, the current recommendations are to, it's a recommendation to yourself as Mayor, that the first one is to approve the proposed combined authority response and so on. And then it's a sequence of approvals. I think the point that came up in the debate is whether you as the Mayor will be content to simply note the responses so that officers could progress these schemes with a view to reporting back to a decision-making meeting of the Combined Authority Board in future. But it's a matter for you, Mr. Mayor, but it's whether you want to take on board to note them rather than to approve them at this stage.
Okay, well, I think as far as I can see, there seems to be little difference either way. So if Councillor Hicksford is insistent on having this noted, then I'm very comfortable with that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Niche.
I support and note, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Herbert.
Support.
Councillor Holditch.
Noted support.
And Councillor Smith.
I support, and thank you very much to officers.
Yes, indeed. Thank you to all for that. And we, of course, those members of the public that are watching, if there are any, then we wish you all well, and we hope that we get through this crisis with as limited effect as possible. We move on to item 2.1 on the agenda, which is the budget monitor update. Officers advise the recommendations contained in this report can reasonably be deferred until the board is next able to convene with decision-making powers. So are members in agreement that I defer consideration of this item? I will take it, unless somebody raises their hand that they are not in agreement, that I will defer. So I am deferring this item. Item 2.2 is Treasury Management Strategy 2021. 2020-2021. We have a question on this item from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. And Councillor Dupre, would I ask you to switch on your microphone and share your question with the board?
Thank you very much. The question of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee is as follows. How will these Treasury management strategies be reviewed in the light of the economic effects of COVID-19, given that the severe shock to the economy might require more frequent and more in-depth review than previously envisaged?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Dupre. It's a very good question and well put. The board has delegated scrutiny of the Combined Authority's Treasury Management Strategy to the Audit and Governance Committee. The committee receives a minimum of 3 Treasury reports a year, which include performance updates against prudential indicators, which are set, taking advice from our external Treasury advisors to protect the resources of the Combined Authority. The vast majority of Combined Authority's cash balances are currently held with local authorities, which are considered to be low risk. The finance team will continue to take advice from our advisors and monitor the current and future situation of the economy under the scrutiny of the Audit and Governance Committee and take appropriate action where necessary. Mr. Alsop, our Chief Finance Officer, would you please introduce the report?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This report provides the board with the draft Treasury strategies for 2020-21. As mentioned previously, according to the Constitution, the board is responsible for the adoption of the strategy, but it's delegated the scrutiny and the monitoring of the strategies to the Audit and Governance Committee. There are 4 strategy documents attached as appendices to the report, which have been drafted with the help of our recently appointed Treasury advisors, Arlene Close. And these are the capital strategy, which provides a high-level overview on capital expenditure and financing. The Treasury management strategy, which covers the management of the authority's cash balances. The investment strategy, which includes where the authority supports local public services by lending to or buying shares in other organisations. And the minimum revenue provision statement, which is a requirement which shows how the combined authority would finance capital borrowing if it had any. As part of its Treasury and investment strategies, the board is asked to approve the creation of a £40 million top-up fund, which would be made available from existing cash balances. We currently hold around £170 million of cash balances, which are currently held in low risk investments, which are relatively liquid so that funds can be released to fund the capital programme over the course of the medium-term financial plan. And the board and both the board and the Audit and Governance Committee have in the past asked us to look at ways in which we can make better use of these balances to further the delivery objectives of the combined authority. So it's proposed to make available £40 million of treasury cash to create this £40 million top-up fund, which would operate in a similar way to the existing £40 million revolving fund to support, for example, additional affordable housing schemes, but also to potentially support other service investments. As treasury cash, the criteria for the use of these balances will be consistent with the fundamental treasury management concepts of security first and liquidity and then return. But I'd be happy to take any questions on the report or on any of the strategy documents.
Members, any questions? Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Can I just pick up on the last point then? So if I just reiterate my understanding. So we've got £40 million of cash balances, currently low risk and high liquidity. We're looking at turning that into a revolving fund with a focus on additional affordable housing schemes. Is that the right understanding? And so my question is, should we not, due to the current situation, be looking at using that money to deal with the current situation as it emerges?
Yeah, well, I think so just to answer the two points there, we currently have about £170 million worth of cash funds, and these are they're earmarked for projects which have been agreed by the board in the creation of the MTFP. Directors are currently looking at each line on the budget and the MTFP to review how the budget can be reprioritised towards promoting economic recovery in future. But in terms of cash flow, we are looking to allocate a £40 million to, I think the original concept was to promote affordable housing, but that's not to say that it can't be used for other investments in other of the in other combined authority priorities. So it could be flexible enough to be able to do that.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you. So my concern there is that we're not sure anybody's going to be building houses for an awful long time. So rather than having money, considerable sums of money sitting there, really not being used because the construction market is down to a complete halt, wouldn't it be, I'm not saying we shouldn't use it for that, but shouldn't we be broadening it out as of now to start investing it in business recovery and business sustainability?
Can I just come in, Ms. Trogsop, and just as part of the question that Councillor Smith, I think, is asking, can you also clarify, because obviously the money that we have is capital and not revenue, can you clarify how we will be able to invest that money, if necessary, to kickstart the economy in the way that Councillor Smith has suggested, bearing in mind the restrictions on capital and revenue that we have?
Yeah, well, I think there's 2 points to that. One being in terms of the distinction between the existing £40 million grant fund that we have, which is part of the housing £100 million. The distinction with this is that this is the use of cash balances, which would be for investments that we could make as part of our treasury management processes. So we do have to be a bit careful in terms of the security in the first instance and the liquidity of these cash balances, because they will be needed to fund the existing projects which are going through the capital programme. So there is a certain amount of there's more flexibility in terms of the funds which are part of the MTFP rather than the additional cash funds, which would be subject to greater control as part of the Treasury management. What we are doing though is looking at all of the all elements within the NTFP, so that's both revenue and capital. We had a meeting yesterday to start looking at what priorities could be looked at in terms of freeing up resources to be able to be redeployed according to emerging priorities. So that's an ongoing piece of work that we're looking at the moment.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you. So thank you very much. That's really helpful, and I absolutely understand that. I mean, is there an argument for the mayors, as part of their joint approach to this, to be having conversations with government about freeing up capital spend for revenue as an emergency action? Because it seems that that's actually quite an impediment to us at the moment.
Well, there is, and we are having regular meetings with government online, as you would expect, and those suggestions are coming through. So very much at the moment, Councillor Smith, as you'll be aware, there is a central government strategy through the Treasury to support business that we totally understand. But I'm in agreement with you that if we can do more locally, then we simply must. And I think as well that we have to be aware that it will be Cambridgeshire and Peterborough as an economy will be one of the areas that will help lead the world through and post this crisis in the financial way. So it is imperative that we try and make sure that our economy is protected to allow us to move forward quickly after this crisis. And whatever we can do as a combined authority, we will certainly do.
I would also add, actually, that that we are in discussion with other combined authorities and with our constituent council colleagues to understand what the particular issues for us all are, and making representations to central government on that basis. So we are working together with the other combined authorities.
Councillor Herbert.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to discuss this, and I haven't discussed it with Councillor Smith or anybody else. Life's been busy. The issue for me, James, is we've got money, but is this the right time to commit it? We don't know what the position is on housing loans that we've lent out. We don't, which is roughly about £40 million. We don't know what the impact or requests we'll get for changes to payback. I just think if you're thinking about a decision today that it's hasty. I don't see that in agreeing any spend from the 40 million that there will be much happening for 3 or possibly 6 months. And my concern is we should hold on to this 40 million, even though it's something I've argued for over 2 years, until we get to the other side of the coronavirus crisis and then make the decision. So by all means, I would support the strategies, but not to agree the top-up loan fund today. Sorry, I've got dog walkers in the background. Well,
I'm glad that there is some part of the world that's functioning, Councillor Herbert, near to your study. I don't think there's any decision today that is going to, how can I put it? I think it's important that we make the decision that the 40 million is available, and I think from Councillor Smith's point, we have to be able to be flexible. I think we also have to be mindful that the world might not stop over the next 3 weeks, and that business might well be able to carry on in a strong position. So I don't want to commit unnecessarily to new decisions over the course of the next 3 to 6 months, but I think we also have to make sure and be mindful of that businesses that we are working with and have been working with also will be part of the recovery post COVID-19. So I think that your point is very sensible, but I think we have to weigh up as well. If we just stop all pipeline of investment across the entire country, because of the situation we're in. It could be more damaging in the long term. So I agree with you, and I'm just putting a counterpoint there. Councillor Smith, Councillor Herbert. Can't hear you, Councillor Herbert.
Thank you. Well, I think we just got to go on the wording there that's in the recommendation, James, which says to approve a £40 million top-up loan scheme. I just think that the combined authority would be wise to start those projects at the other end of the crisis. And whilst we do need to take part in the economic recovery, that 40 million could be used and gain a sound interest in a more creative way. So I think suggesting that we're not taking a decision is a bit inaccurate. We've got a clear decision to approve allocating 40 million, and in the circumstances I can't support that today. I accept that the decision in the end is yours.
May I speak, please, Mayor?
Based upon the decision of the Combined Authority Board. Councillor Bowden.
Thank you very much indeed, Mayor. I have to say that I feel very much that we need to plan for the future. We have no idea how deep and how serious and how long this crisis is going to be. It may be at the shorter end of some of the expectations. It may be longer. If it is at the shorter end, by approving this now, we'll be able to move forward with our plans in an appropriate way. If it's longer, we can always reverse this decision. So I think that the appropriate thing to do is to go ahead with what is being proposed at the moment.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Bowden. Any further comments? Councillor Smith.
Thank you. So if I could just sort of go back to my original point and picking up on what Councillor Herbert has said. I really feel to be, targeting this at more affordable housing at this moment in time is, I just don't think we'll get it spent, quite honestly. So, I mean, I'll support this, provided I understand that we are looking at, broadening it out and matching it to the current situation.
Yeah, I don't think there's any commitment, Councillor Smith, in here that says this 40 million can only be used for and will only be used for and should only be used for at any stage only supporting 100k home schemes. That's of course what it's for, but of course it doesn't mean it has to be spent that way. And I think Councillor Bowden's point is absolutely spot on. Any further comments? So I have no further speakers, so I will now be asked the voting members to indicate whether they support the recommendations set out in the report, so that I can take their views into account in making a decision using my general power. Austin Adams.
I would support this.
Councillor Anna Bailey.
Agreed.
Councillor Chris Bowden.
Support.
Councillor Roger Hickford.
Support.
Councillor John Nish. I think I lip-read support there from Councillor Nish.
I've got it now on support.
Councillor Lewis Herbert. Thank you.
I'm going to abstain, but can I just explain briefly? One, I support £40 million because the reserves are sitting there, but I just don't think this is the time to make the decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor John Holditch. Seems to have disappeared. Councillor Holditch.
Councillor Holditch is not in the meeting, Mayor. Sorry for interrupting, but I have texted him to ask if he needs any assistance to get back into the meeting. So I'm just waiting for a response.
Okay, and Councillor Bridget Smith.
Support, subject to my last comment.
Okay, thank you very much. So I note that all councillors are in support, apart from Councillor Herbert, who has abstained, and your points, both Councillor Smith and Councillor Herbert, of course, are recorded in this meeting. And my decision on this matter is to accept the recommendation in the report. We will move on to part 3, Market Towns Programmes, approval of master plans for Huntingdonshire. And we have, before we begin, we have a question on this report from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. And Councillor Dupre would like to state your case.
Thank you very much indeed. The question from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee is as follows. The Overview and Scrutiny Committee is still awaiting the information requested at its meeting on 27th of January 2020 about how councillors and communities are engaged in these master plan exercises. When will this be provided?
Okay, the response I've been given is that it will be provided by the end of the week, Councillor Gray. So I hope that you'll be satisfied by that when these when you are provided by these responses.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And I will now invite Domenico Carrillo, Business Programs Manager, to introduce the report. Domenico.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mayor. Just to pick up on that last point, just to confirm, yes, I do have the response for the ONS around consultation, and we'll send this through after the meeting this afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So this item is to approve the market towns produced for Huntingdonshire. They include the towns of St Ives, Huntingdon and Ramsey. And this forms part of the prospectus for growth, which Huntingdonshire District Council lead on together with the combined authority, and builds upon the pilot master plan which was completed and approved for St Neots back in 2018. The master plans are attached for the board's information. Just to clarify, these were commenced back in 2019, September. Town teams were put together for each town, and they met on 3 key occasions, including the district council, town councils, the county council, and CPCA and councillors were represented at those town teams. In fact, the mayor attended the last round of those town team meetings just after the Christmas break. For each town, the master plans include an action plan, which prioritises interventions to be taken forward in the short, medium and longer term. These focus around transport and connectivity, business support and skills, and looking beyond the high streets and how we can accommodate some of the business growth ambitions for the region, and then improving visitor and evening economies. And how do we make the towns work better in terms of attracting that visitor spend? Defended master plans were approved by the board in January, and this is a continuation of the programme which sees the combined authority committed to generating or producing 11 market towns across our patch. The final master plans are for East Cambs, which will be coming to the board in June for final approval, and we'll have a complete programme of master plans approved by the board and local authorities and district councils. And it will be then from June that we will launch a funding programme on the combined authority's £5 million commitment to see these master plans implemented to delivery. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Domenico. Before we go to any questions, I would like to invite Councillor Nish, who is here on behalf of Huntingdonshire District Council. Councillor Nish, would you like to have have you got anything to say on the master plans for Huntingdonshire?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's one of those which is really interesting timings for us. As you've heard, it started in 2019. And we were really trying to, the 3 market towns that you've got before you are clearly very different in their dynamics and such like. And I think we've all got to be really careful how we go forward with this, and timings are going to be critical, especially at present time with the COVID-19 going on, update of when we put through for funding, etc. But I do implore you that these are really good documents that can really help and support not just what we thought was going to go ahead, but obviously what we may have to deal with now. So I think from our perspective of Huntingdonshire, we're really pleased with some of the stuff that's come out. Governance has not yet been fully worked through, but we've learned a lot from the St Neots market town, and the steering groups we use there. We feel that this will give us a really beneficial way to move forward in the future. And again, from our time, it's just the timelines might need to be looked at for the future. But apart from that, I think they are really good papers for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Nish. Any comments? Any other comments from members? Councillor Smith.
Sorry,
We've lost you, Councillor Smith, because you're speaking to yourself at the moment.
Thank you. Thank you.
Much better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So just firstly, I think the prospectus documents are really, really good. So thank you very much for officers for those. They're very intelligible and clear, and actually they're quite a pleasure to read. So thank you for that. If I could just pick up on the request from scrutiny and overview, and Dominic, I noted, said that response had been prepared. So bearing in mind that I'm sure all my colleagues think that really strong local member involvement is critical to the success of these programmes. Is Dominic able to share with us verbally now that response that's going to be going to Councillor Dupre?
Yes, Councillor. Let me just bring up the email. So we've got details of the three town team meetings which were held for each of the towns, and the attendance the attendance for those. I've got records of those stakeholder meetings, which I'm going to provide for scrutiny and overview. There's been confirmed representation of like you say, the town councils, and also local councillors. And I've got those listed by the consultants as well, including county council officers which were consulted.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Nish.
I think I'm off mute now. Just I'm aware that when these reports were held, compiled, they have had 3 meetings with all of the town and stakeholder groups, including businesses, local, obviously us as a local authority, and including third sector representation. And these all took place, I think, from June 2019 through till January 2020. The last of which has already been pointed out was held in your office. And they've also carried out a number of telephone calls with key businesses of the town to understand the local conditions. But obviously, I think that continues anyway, but I hope that helps.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, so I mean, I've always felt the master plans are tremendously important. Of course, there are 4 in total for Hunts, including St Neots, which we'll go on to later. And of course, Fenland and East Cambs are also involved in the master plan process as well. What we have tried to do from day one is to make this very much a locally led scheme, so to make sure that the people of the towns that they represent have a free say in what they want, rather than the combined authority dictating to them what happens. I think that's tremendously important. I'm very, very hopeful that we will get extra funding through the government, the funding that was put forward by government for towns, and I'm hopeful that some of those schemes that we're working on will gain extra funding for that as well. But most importantly, whatever happens, everywhere that has a master plan will have some money to invest to support it, and I think that's tremendously important. I will now be asking voting members of the board to indicate whether they support the recommendations set out, so that I can take their views into account making the decision using my general power. I will ask each board member in turn. Austin Adams.
Support.
Councillor Anna Bailey.
Support.
Councillor Chris Bowden.
Support.
Councillor Roger Hickford.
Support.
Councillor John Nish.
Support.
Councillor Lewis Herbert.
Support.
Councillor John Holditch.
Support.
Welcome back, John. And Councillor Bridget Smith.
Support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I know that this is a unanimous decision, and my decision will then be to accept the recommendation of the report. We move on to item 4.2, on the agenda, which is the St Neots crossing, and the Overview and Scrutiny Committee are still have another question, and Councillor Dupre will again put that question.
Thank you very much. The question from Overview and Scrutiny Committee is, which projects within the St Neots Master Plan would be eligible to benefit from this funding, and which particular ones does the Mayor have in mind?
Okay, so the £3.1 million of gain share funding, if approved by the board, will be available to be allocated to any projects within the Master Plan. A call for proposals will be launched, or has been launched, for all market towns to propose how they would like to invest their allotted funding from the Combined Authority across the projects in their Master Plan. And just to reiterate the point I just made, Councillor Dupre, it isn't about the Mayor saying to St Neots or anywhere else, this is what you will do with your money. It's about St Neots saying, okay, well, the bridge might not have been possible. Funding is not going to stretch that far, but there's still £3.1 million for St Neots, if approved, for St Neots people to suggest how it can be invested into their town. That's a tremendous amount of money, and I believe that will make a significant difference to St Neots itself. So again, before I invite questions, I'm going to bring in Councillor Nish. Obviously, being the Huntingdonshire representative, is a lot closer to this than most of us. Councillor Nish.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I mean, this one was to take out the cycle bridge, but from our perspective is that because of the increasing in requirement on the funding, but and thankfully, as already been asked for above, is that this money of £3.1 million is going to be retained for use within the Neots Master Plan, and also will support, we hope, working with the future High Street Fund bid, a draft business case which has been submitted, and the final case is going to on the 30th of June, if I recall correctly. So I'm hoping that we are happy as a board to move that this money does retain in that area for use by the residents of St Neots, as was pointed out by the Mayor, and hopefully there aren't any too many areas where we've had dissent on that one. Thank you.
Okay, my apologies. I seem to have got confused by my multiple numbers of papers here, but I believe, Dermot, I'm right in saying that this key decision report was added to the Combined Authority Board agenda on the recommendation of the Transport and Infrastructure Committee, and this was done under the general exception arrangements set out in the Constitution, as the report has been on the forward plan for less than 28 days prior to the decision being taken. A copy of the general exception notice was attached to the report as Appendix 1, and I'm advised that this is not an item which I can make a decision using general power. Our members in agreement that I defer the consideration of this item until the board can reconvene with decision-making powers.
Agreed.
Nods will be enough. Thank
Agreed.
you very much. So I will defer this item, and I will also go back to item 4.1, Lancaster Way, which is also an item that I'm advised is not an item of which I can make a decision using my general power. Our members also agreed that I defer the consideration of this item until the board can reconvene with decision-making powers. So that's agreed as well. So thank you.
Sorry, Mayor, I was indicating just to speak, if I may.
My apologies. Yes, of course you may. As the representative for East Cambridgeshire, you are more than welcome to speak.
Thank you very much. I'm just incredibly anxious about the timescale of this project, and I thank the board for stepping in and the committee for making the recommendations that it has to the board. You know, you've obviously looked at the timescale, but one thing I just wanted to raise today, depending on how long our unfortunate current circumstances continue, there is an amazing opportunity to potentially bring forward development of this scheme and cause massively reduced interruption. I mean, the build out of this scheme is going to cause huge interruption to residents of East Cambridgeshire and beyond. And obviously there are huge opportunities at the moment to change that situation. I don't know how and when that might be possible, but I just wanted to raise it.
Thank you very much. As soon as possible, I hope. Mr. Pearson, would like to come in?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, although there is a legal problem with making the decision, just to reassure Councillor Bailey that officers will look at every mechanism to try and get this decision made. It's likely, as we'll come to later on in the agenda, to revolve around the changes in the law that the government's taking through Parliament this week. But if I can just reassure members that if we need to find a more urgent way of making that decision, we'll leave no stone unturned.
Thank you. And did I see Councillor Nish, you put your hand up as well?
I think he's nearly clarified that, because obviously just realising by deferring it, we were hoping, again, timings are probably going to change on this anyway, but obviously we had to make a submission for the business case on the 30th of June, which we're hoping to see where we could utilise some of that, the 3.1 million as joint funding, co-funding towards it. So obviously, again, if it is possible to make that decision at some stage. Times are difficult. It could be that all those other things change timings anyway. Thank you. Okay,
thank you, Councillor Nish. So I will move on after that slight confusion that I apologise for to item 5.1 on the agenda, which is the 100 million affordable housing programme, non-grant, Cambridge City Histon Road development loan to Lara Homes. And before we begin, can I remind the board that if members want to discuss the exempt appendices relating to the project, we will need to consider whether to exclude the press and public from that part of our virtual meeting. Does anyone wish to discuss the exempt appendices? No. Okay. In that case, we have a question from Overview and Scrutiny, Councillor Dupre.
Thank you very much. The question from Overview and Scrutiny is, what form of tenure will the affordable homes be, and to what accessibility standards will they be constructed?
Okay, thank you. So the affordable housing was set to be 60% affordable rent, 40% shared ownership, but Cross Keys have had an initial discussion with Cambridge City Council, who are happy in principle for this to be 70% affordable rent and 30% shared ownership. There are 10 affordable units. They will be built to a minimum space standards and include the provision of a lift to comply with Lifetime Homes Policy M4 Part 2 of the building regulations regarding acceptable and adaptable dwellings. Thank you. Roger Thompson, Director of Housing and Development, would you like to introduce the report?
Thank you, Mayor. Hopefully you can all hear me.
We can.
So the purpose of this report is to seek approval from the board for the provision of a 30-month repayable loan. The loan facility will be capped at £9.637 million to Histon Road Developments LLP for development of the 27-unit housing scheme. The loan will be used to acquire the land and develop the site. The transaction of the site will be delivered through the provision of this loan, which otherwise we believe the developer is advising will not be able to secure the funding he requires to acquire the site and complete the development. The security for the loan, as usual with our loans, we are taking a first charge on the site. So that has been confirmed, and we have the valuation for the site. And we have a guarantor in the form of the parent company, which is Lara House Developments Limited, and they'll be offering a guarantee for 10% of the construction cost.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Thompson. Councillor Bowden, as Chair of Housing and Communities Committee, is there anything you would like to add?
Yes, this matter was considered at the meeting on the 9th of March of the Housing and Communities Committee, and we considered also the exempt appendices, which I know we're not discussing now. And taking all of those things into account, I have to say that this does provide additional, much needed affordable rented and shared ownership housing in a really key location within Cambridge City, and it fulfills the additionality requirements that we've got. And on the basis of all of that and the information that we had available to us, the committee was happy to recommend this to the board. Since then, of course, a lot has happened in the last 2 weeks and 2 days. And I have had further discussions with Roger in the light of what's happening with COVID-19. And taking everything into account, we believe that it's still appropriate for us to go ahead with this at this time. We've looked at the risk profile, we've looked at various matters to do with the financing side of it, and I certainly am quite comfortable to recommend that we continue to go ahead with this project now.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bowden. Councillor Herbert, you've indicated to speak.
Sorry, just trying to battle with technology.
Well,
Sorry.
we can hear you and see you well.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you very clearly.
Okay, so as this is in Cambridge City, can I make quite clear that we support 300k homes, which is, I think, is the number that is the target on this, and I understand our planning department as quite separately to me, because they have to act independent of financial and other issues, given support and assisted, because with the 100k homes being bold and rightly a strong intervention, there may not be the right planning policy. So in that zone, I am fully in support of this project. I just want to raise how this fits with the wider financial strategies that the Combined Authority is following. This is a quarter of the funding that is only just been approved, I understand. Along with the previous head of finance, I strongly supported using this rather than the other £40 million for affordable housing on projects like this. With Larag Homes, I calculate we now have an investment, some might call it exposure, of £21.6 million, which is a significant sum of money. I take Roger Thompson's point, and maybe he can clarify the level of security that we have on these three investments, along with Great Abington and Alexander House. So I do think it's right that the board considers that overall 21.6 million extent of finance. I have raised on previous occasions why are we looking or seeming to give preference for Larag Homes, simply because we've got a lot of other projects that may come forward, and I presume, Mayor, that we're now up to around 2,000 people expressing an interest in these homes. So my issue is that if you look at the extent of the loan for a period of 2.5 years, this is over £3 million for each of these 100k homes. So I'd appreciate some comments from Roger Thompson, Mayor, because as I've said before, I believe that we should go ahead with a project like this. I certainly won't vote against this, but I'm still linked to the earlier discussion about, is it right to start committing the £40 million that the Combined Authority effectively has as flexible funding that it could be using also in response to the COVID crisis after? I have to ask myself, is this good timing? Is this necessary? Will Larag Homes start building within the next 3 to 6 months on this site, though they've had planning permission for a significant period of time? And therefore, this is an issue of timing for me, Mayor. So I'd appreciate some further comment from Roger Thompson about the exposure with Larag Homes, about when the expected build date is going to be, and about this proportionality of £3 million per 100k home, given that you've got an ambition, rightly, to get to 100, 500, potentially 1,000, and this is £3 million for each one. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Roger, would you like to clarify the question from Councillor Herbert?
Of course, Mayor. I'll just come back. I was trying to make some note as those points were being raised. So in terms of the loan security on our other loans, as I mentioned in this paper, we have first charge on the asset in terms of the land or the property on all of our loans, and we also have guarantors in place with Lara Homes on the loans with them. In connection with our risk, I think it's important to understand that in the schemes that we are funding, there are significant affordable housing elements within those schemes. Now, looking at a couple of the schemes that are on site and moving ahead, what those parties are doing is that possibly, fortunately, they're actually changing their program slightly and bringing the affordable housing ahead in their program, and we will be receiving some capital receipts on the sale of those affordable housing units. So that gives me some greater confidence that we're not overexposing ourselves in terms of the total amount of money that we are lending out from the 40 million revolving fund. In connection with this specific scheme and will they build, couple of points with that. First off, with a bit of foresight, we sort of tried to COVID-19 proof this deal. If you look at the developer's cash flow, he's suggesting that in more normal times, he would be building this scheme out in about 19 months. You'll note that we're suggesting that the loan is for 30 months. That is going to build some time in either for the sale of units at the end of the programme, if the market is in some form depressed, or possibly a slight delay at the beginning of the programme. But talking to Lara, my understanding is that they are intending to complete their land acquisition within the next 2 or 3 weeks. They have a contract to do that, so they definitely need to secure the site. And again, from those discussions, I don't believe they're going to hold back the appointment of their contractor and get going on the site. My understanding is that they are intending to get going, although it wouldn't shock me if they decide to prioritise the affordable housing build first on this site as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thompson. I think just in reply to your points, Councillor Herbert, which I think are totally understandable and not without merit, I think that we have to realise and we have to be mindful that the housing crisis will not go away because of housing COVID-19. We know when it comes to the 100k home, over 700 people in Cambridge alone have signed up to this scheme, which suggests to me that selling 3 homes on this site will not be a difficulty at all. And whilst I will repeat what I've said, we are very mindful of being able to support business in the short term, and we must do so. We must also commit to a long-term strategy to deliver continued growth to the UK economy via Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, and that's what the Combined Authority was set up to do. So I think it is, in my view, entirely appropriate that we go ahead with this scheme as laid out by Councillor Bowden and Mr. Thompson. And I appreciate your questions and your concerns, Councillor Herbert. As I said, they are not without merit, and I totally understand your point of view. However, I'm of the opinion that it is absolutely right that we support the economy in this way at this particular time through this particular site.
May I say something, please, Mayor?
Yes, you may, Councillor.
Thank you very much. Just one thing which needs to be put right so that it doesn't incorrectly go on the record. Even in terms of loan facility available, we are not making a loan facility available of £3 million per 100k home. The £9.67 million facility, which will not all be drawn down at once, of course, but that £9.637 million facility is, of course, supporting 10 affordable homes, not just the 3 affordable homes which are going to be part of the 100k scheme.
And will be paid back with interest.
Of course.
Of course. So the actual cost of the taxpayer is zero, as we know. Okay, if I have no further comments, Councillor Herbert.
I appreciate Councillor Bowden's point. My point would be, and I don't want to prolong this, that I do not believe that the Combined Authority would be attracted to loan this money if it wasn't for the 100k homes project. Now, others may take a different view of that. I will modify my voting position because I can support this, and I listen to you thoughtfully, Mayor, in terms of the scheme going ahead, but I do register and have registered my concerns. Thank you.
Much appreciated, and as I said before, Councillor Herbert recorded too. So I will now ask voting members of the board to indicate whether they support the recommendations set out in the report, but I can take their views into account in making the decision using my general power. I would ask each board member in turn Austin Adams.
Support.
Councillor Anna Bailey. Councillor Chris Bowden.
Support.
Councillor Roger Hickford.
Support.
Councillor John Nish.
Support.
Councillor Lewis Herbert.
Support.
Councillor John Holditch. Lost. John, you are in the room. Can you hear us? Councillor Holditch.
Support.
Councillor Bridget Smith.
Support.
Okay, I note that we have unanimous support, and I thank you for that. And my decision on this matter is to accept the recommendations of the report. We move into part 6, the Business Board Governance, and Austin Adams will lead us through. Austin is the chair of the Business Board, and would you like to introduce the report, Austin?
Sorry, James. I rather thought that Rochelle was going to lead us through, through this.
I'm sure that's fine. Rochelle, are you able to lead us through? Rochelle White.
Yes. Good afternoon, board members. So we undertook a review of the governance arrangements currently applicable to the business board. The board would be familiar with the constitution and the assurance framework, which sets out exactly how the business board operates. Now, the governance review focused on 4 key areas: board oversight and assurance, board membership, board performance, and effective decision making. You will see at the report that there is an appendix. The appendix outlines the findings of the governance review. A part of that process was to ensure that all members were able to feed back into the process. And so part of the induction in January 2020 included a separate session focused on the governance review. So part of the governance review document in the appendix covers member feedback. If I just focus on the main finding of the governance review, under board assurance and oversight, you will be aware that currently all funding decisions are ratified by the combined authority. Now, the National Assurance Framework requires that decisions are subject to the Section 73 or the Section 151 Office of Financial Oversight, and there isn't actually a requirement for board ratification. So that brings to light a decision as to whether the ratification process should continue. That is a decision for the Combined Authority Board to make, and a further paper will be brought to the board after the board has fully consulted on that issue and made a decision. Other recommendations which were brought forward was the recruitment process adopted. The recruitment process adopted in August 2019 will continue. We'll continue with the induction day. There will be clear arrangements for resignation of board members. The conflict of interest policy will also be updated to include officer conflict. There will be a gifts and hospitality policy and a remuneration policy. In terms of the current climate with COVID-19, we've seen that the urgency procedure is quite fluid in terms of getting urgent recommendations through, including the recommendations within the COVID-19 report that was before the board today. At the business board meeting on Monday, the recommendations were approved and a recommendation was made for the combined authority to approve those recommendations. As it's a matter reserved to the board, the CA board, it's before you today. And I'm happy to take any questions that board members may have on the report or the appendices.
Members, any comments? Councillor Smith.
Sorry, I was trying to read papers at the same time, which makes it really difficult. So if I could ask Rochelle a question, please. So I'm sorry, Rochelle, I haven't read the appendices because I'm like everybody else, we've all been run off our feet. On the subject of the membership, I don't know how, I presume you've looked at the makeup of the board. Have you done a comparison between the membership of our business board and the membership of the other LEPs to make sure that the democratic representation is similar? Because my concern is that perhaps there are fewer elected members on our business board than there are on many of the other LEPs.
Rochelle?
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Now, the National Insurance Framework actually prescribes board membership, so we are 100% compliant. That includes at least 2/3 of board representatives from the private sector, a designated diversity champion, adopting best practice, which is not nominating an SME enterprise champion, and it gives them a maximum number of members, which is 20. So we are actually compliant. But having said that, we could do further work as part of our peer-to-peer process to ascertain what other board LEP composition is, and that could be brought back as a later paper.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Obviously with the Mayor's approval, I would really be very interested to know, particularly in relation to the Oxford-Cambridge ARC, which is all going to become much more significant to us. I would really be interested to know what the comparison is between the number of elected members on our board in comparison to that on the other boards, particularly in that Oxford-Cambridge area, and perhaps spreading it out a bit wider, out to the East Coast as well, please.
Well, of course, we can look into that, Councillor Smith. You'll be aware, of course, that the Combined Authority Business Board was set up very much with business at the heart of it, and it was a deliberate decision taken with government support to make sure that the elected members, myself and Councillor Holditch, were not voting members of the board, but there to oversee that the board behaved appropriately, of course, with the finances. But it's very, very important to us that that business had control of investment into business, and that's been the drive and the ambition of the business board from when it was set up. And obviously we were in a situation, as you're fully aware, where the governance of the LEP had failed the region. So this is clearly a different way of doing things. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. So I do appreciate that, and I'm aware that the business board's working very effectively now. I'm just also aware that those of us who are very active in economic development might add some value.
Yeah, that point is noted, Councillor Smith. Any further comments? Okay, so I will, rather than read you through, I will take it that everybody is comfortable and happy with that recommendation from the business board. Everybody is, so that's excellent. Yes. So I will note that everybody is in support, and my decision on the matter is to accept the recommendations in the report. And we move on to item 6.2, which is enterprise zone funding utilisation. And on this, Councillor Dupre from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee has a question. Councillor Dupre.
Thank you. The question is, which assumptions in this report are likely to be affected by government financial announcements related to COVID-19?
Okay, well, thank you, Councillor Dupre. The government support for business that relates to business rates are as follows. 1. Grants for retail, hospitality and leisure businesses consisting of a £25,000 grant for retail, hospitality and leisure businesses operating for small premises with a rate or value between £15,000 and £51,000, and this will be administered through local authorities. 2. Grants for small businesses that pay little or no business rates, businesses consisting of a 10k firms currently eligible for SBRR or rural rate relief to help meet their ongoing business costs. This will be administered through local authorities. And 3, business rate relief following allowing for a 100% business rates discount for all retail, leisure and hospitality venues with no limits to rateable values. This will also be administered through local authorities. Whilst the third measure has potential to impact business rates revenue receipts, there are relatively few tenants on the enterprise zones in these categories or businesses. Okay, thank you. So we will also therefore move on. Austin, can I take it that Rochelle White will also introduce this report?
I believe Domenico is going to.
Okay, thank you very much. Domenico.
Hello, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Austin. So this is, we've recently received updated NDR figures from local authorities, the collecting authorities, regarding our EZ business rates. Having received those updated profiles, we've revised our CPCA EZ income receipts. You will see from the table, Appendix 1 to the report details the position before the updated figures had come through, and Appendix 2 details the latest position that we're asking for approval today. The revised cost allocations that you see in Appendix 2 in the table are to reduce the demand on that revenue income and to utilise local growth fund criteria, which allows us to allocate a proportion of up to 75% of staff resource. And that would include business board costs to deliver and administer local growth fund, which is going to become more appropriate in terms with COVID, with responding to the COVID crisis. So we're asking the board today to approve the reallocation of 306,000 of corporate costs from the EZ budget over to the local growth fund, as recommended by the business board on Monday.
Okay, thank you very much, Domenico.
Thank you.
Any members of the board have any comments or questions on the report? Councillor Bailey.
Just briefly wanted to add to your reply to ONS that I picked up the other day that the business rates holiday had been extended to A2 use class as well. Don't know if that affects anybody on the enterprise zones, but may do.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? I will take the silence as support, if possible, if I may, and therefore I will. My decision on the matter is to accept the recommendation in the report, and we move on to item 6.3, which is Advanced Materials and Manufacturing Sector Strategy. This item was deferred by the Business Board on Monday, but we have a question from Councillor Dupre from Overview and Scrutiny.
Thank you. COVID again. When and how will this strategy be reviewed in the light of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, I think it's a valid point. All combined authority business support strategies are currently being reviewed in the light of the COVID-19 pandemic. An economic survey will be carried out in the summer to measure the medium-term impacts of the pandemic, and this will be used to inform a medium-term review. I think, as in all cases, Councillor Dupre, we are in a state of flux. We are aware of that, and we are reacting as and when we go through the system to find out what can be done to support the economy locally.
Thank you.
Thank you. Obviously we've already covered item 7.1, and we move on to item 8. So this is the scheduled meeting we have, which is dated next week, scheduled on the 3rd of June for the Combined Authority AGM. However, I think that considering the situation we're in, I think that we have to make sure that we have time in the diary for a meeting in April. I believe that things will move quickly. It may well be that we can have an official meeting, as we've discussed, online, a virtual meeting, and it's important that we schedule a meeting in April to make sure that we can react as quickly as possible. I hope board members are in agreement. Yes, so general agreement, and then so we will get back to you obviously with dates for a meeting in April. Well, thank you very much for your attendance today. I hope you found it simple to use. I think it's come across very well. Certainly, I appreciate your time and effort today, and I will look forward to the next meeting. Thank you.
Stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Good job.
Thank